Hey YouTube, this is the Art of Prepping. So I've been talking to elder preppers or more wise, experienced preppers. Just want to thank them for their input. And these individuals have at least about 5 decades of prepping experience, and they gave me a small short list of things to pass on to you about the things that they've learned, reflections from their experiences. And I'm going to name this particular video "Cycles of Life: Reflections from Other Preppers." The first thing is don't buy out of fear. Don't do anything out of fear. In fact, they say just you find other motivations. Find that you're going to be a good role model. Look at yourself as a good, responsible person. Look at yourself and draw from the love of yourself to your family, and use your love to motivate you and not do things out of fear. Fear can also make you panic and make bad decisions, and you don't want to do that. So eliminate your fear. The next one is don't get into the latest and greatest things. The latest and greatest, the big fads that move through the prepping world, it may not be appropriate for you. It could be precious metals. It could be certain backpacks or certain flashlights, or the latest and greatest water filter that comes and goes. Or we always know about, every week it seems like there's a new flashlight that comes out that has the newer LED technology and that runs for even a longer period on a newer battery. And you got to be careful about that, because it may not be needed. Your flashlight you bought 10 years ago may still be efficient enough for you. It may be adequate. Yes, it's really nice to buy the new stuff if it's appropriate for you, but a lot of times the stuff we already have really is enough. Number 3 is pace yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. They say some people put too much pressure on themselves and they get burnt out and they stop prepping. Or they just kind of push it aside. They say, oh, it's too expensive, or it's too stressful, or too time-consuming. And they say if you just pace yourself and literally make yourself go slow through this whole process, you'll actually complete the process more so than if you rush through it. So that means if you go in the grocery store, instead of trying to push yourself and buy 100 canned goods every week, they said maybe just buy 5 to 10 extra canned goods a week. Something like that. They said over long term, you'll be able to maintain that a lot more. And so don't get ahead of yourself. Number 4, research what you are buying and don't do any impulse buys. And that kind of goes along with what I've said in the past. I try to wait sometimes, if I can, a minimum of about 1 whole month before I purchase something. Typically, for a lot of people, they say about 1 to 2 weeks. I do that, and I did that. But I found that if I can even go a month and still like it, man, that pretty much cuts out, for me personally, about 9 out of every 10 things that I've actually chose that I thought I wanted. But with a little bit of time, you start saying, you know what, I really don't even want that anymore. And so for me, I typically can mark them out. And I've saved a lot of money over time and actually been able to whittle down what I really want and what I don't want just by waiting. And so patience right there can be a major cost cutter. And the last thing is, it says don't buy into a trend, and it says wait until you know your needs specifically. And it kind of go hand in hand with what they were talking about on number 2, which is the latest and greatest things. Don't buy into a fad. This one's don't buy into the trend and wait. And so once again, they want you to just be mindful that things come and go. And a lot of times the trends are in cycles, and so they'll come back. For example, maybe a certain style of boot will come back, or a certain type of pants or hats. They come in and out of style. And trends, though, just like with preppers, sometimes it's trendy to be a prepper. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, you're a paranoid nutcase. And so even the ideology of survivalists and preppers comes and goes in and out of favor. And that just depends on what is going on around us. They said that it's amazing how much right after a major natural disaster, or even a national disaster, how much more appreciated and respected preppers are and survivalists. For example, like with Hurricane Katrina, or other types of bad disasters that's happened in the last decade in America. It's amazing how many people get a lot more respect to people who are prepared versus even weeks or months before the national or natural disaster. And people kind of look at them like, oh, it's just a bunch of, paranoid hoarders. And so don't get stuck in those mindsets. Don't get afraid of being labeled. Don't even worry about what people say, they said. And so these elders, these very wise people have pointed out that it's okay for you to be prepared. It's your responsibility. And regardless of what's going on in culture and what the mindset is, it doesn't negate the responsibilities you have. And so don't get caught up in all the hubbub and what other people think about everything. If you're doing the right thing and you're being careful and responsible, then everybody else that isn't is the real problem, even if they don't identify that as there being their own problem. And that's what we found out in the world and over my life too. They were also talking about this, that we are typically our own problem. And it's amazing how many people don't want to talk about that. They want to complain all day and night, when in reality they created their mess and they're making a bigger mess trying to get out of their mess. And so if sometimes, just like I've done some of this too, obviously, and we all have, but you think you're making something better, but you actually screw up more and more and more because you're not taking your own advice, or you're not taking even common sense into account, and you keep on moving about. Even just recently, I did something that I got something right, but I changed something to make it so that it wasn't right, even though I didn't even know that I did it right the first time. And so sometimes you just have to slow down. And once again, they were saying that over and over: slow down, keep a pace, focus. And so anyways, I hope these tips help from elder preppers to kind of give us a little heads up on things to watch out for when we're prepping, so we don't make the same mistakes as they did. But they did say, though, that even if we make all these mistakes, it's not a bad thing, because you grow. And sometimes you have to have the mistakes, as we talked about in other videos, for you to grow. Sometimes you can't just take things at face value or by someone else's word. You have to go through an experience to make the change or grow as a person. So if that's how you work, and sometimes that's how I work, I try to avoid that extra pain and suffering. But if you need to go through that, then go through it to get to the place you need to be. So as always, you guys take care.